Hello everyone. National and international reaction to crime in Papua New Guinea has been unprecedented. The seriousness or the brutal nature of murders, sorcery or otherwise, have been beyond human rationale. And there's been a swell of reaction from all sectors, including written petitions from about 20 countries. Many here have called for the death penalty, though churches say that in itself is also brutal. The government says it is studying all options and will arrive at the most appropriate forms of punishment soon, at least before the end of the year. And with me to talk about this issue is Attorney General and Justice Minister Keregekua. Sir, thank you for making time available.
Well, firstly, thank you for the invitation to talk to you.
You're welcome. A lot of serious crimes and so many so compact. What has triggered all this?
The statistics we have demonstrates that crime is on the rise at every level, from minor misdemeanors, summary offenses to very serious indictable offenses. Indictable offenses are those which are tried in the national court through the committal processes in the district court. Those have been on the increase in recent times.
When you say recent times, from which year to which year?
Well, it's been growing slowly. It's difficult to put a precise, pick a precise spot in the track over time, but it's been growing slowly post-independence. I think as at independence, if you were to use that as the starting point, things had very much stabilized and law and order was under control.
Right.
You could see it from the fact that at that point in time, we didn't have security firms. We didn't have security fences around our homes and businesses,
all that, yes.
Window grills, barbed wires, all those concrete fences, etc. We never had them.
No.
But slowly, as crime began to rise, people and business houses begin to respond to it by taking defensive measures. And so slowly you saw the growth of security firms, and you saw the growth in the use of all kinds of security measures around homes and properties and businesses and so on as a defense to the growth in our law and order situation. It's now come to a point where you could say that the majority of the homes in the urban areas now have a security fence of one form or another.
Yeah.
These are
they're virtually arming themselves, just about, aren't they, to
that point where now, beyond security fencing, beyond security guards, people are now beginning to arm themselves both legally and illegally.
Right.
And that is in response to the law and order phenomenon in the country. It's been growing. So the responses you see all around you is the response to that.
Yes, yes. So where have we gone wrong? What have we done wrong here from independence time to now? What has gone wrong?
We need to take an all-of-government approach to understand this phenomenon, because it's far wider than what my department can answer as to why we have reached this point and where we've gone wrong. It's a societal issue, and we need social scientists, people learned in this kind of phenomena to come in and advise us on why we have tracked in that direction and not maintained it the way it was, law and order as it was as of independence. But my department is only concerned with the laws and the reforms of the law where it's necessary, and that's where we come in. Where we feel that there's a need to reform the law because existing laws are not responding adequately to a situation. Whilst the civil cases have also been on the rise, with the criminal cases, the seriousness and complexity of the crimes have also increased quite significantly. That's the statistics we have from the courthouse, which also supplies some form of evidence to the need for legal reform at the moment.
Okay, okay. And not so much serious, but severity, the deliberate severity of some of the crimes being committed.
Yeah.
That's also mind-boggling.
Yeah. Respect for the sanctity of human life has disappeared in some quarters. And I think that probably goes back, as I said, I don't have the answers, the scientific answers as to why human beings are behaving in this particular way. But, you know, if I'm to offer a generic comment, what I could say is that perhaps the way society was organized in the past has broken down. There is a new generation of people growing up without any accountability for their, well, firstly, without any culturing of their behavior in their formative years. And then when they go into school, even the school curriculums are not designed to enable the person to live in a society. I think the school programs and curriculums focus more on enabling a young man to be able to gain the technical knowledges of the arts and sciences to be able to secure a job. But there is a big missing link.
Yes, yes.
They are not preparing our kids to live amongst one another, to live within a community.
Okay, well, let's talk about reactions on the ground here and perhaps abroad as well. Let's take PNG. The women are up in arms, the NGOs here are up in arms, politicians, even yourselves as members and ministers are talking about it. The kind of reaction so far.
Yeah.
What can you say? What the level of reaction?
As the level of crime grows and the severity of it also grows, the people have been responding to the extent they can. I think they have taken all the defensive measures they can, and they are now running out of further mechanisms by which to protect themselves within their means. What sort of defensive measures you take to protect yourself depends upon your means as well.
Yes.
So you can take such measures that are within the limits of your means. Beyond that is beyond you. And now they are now calling out to the government. We've come to the end of the road as far as we are able to assist ourselves. What can you do as a government? This is serious. You can no longer afford to sit by and watch us carry the burden this far by ourselves. So you need to do something.
Yes, it's no doubt the house cry that all the women of this country are planning will have all of that inside.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, what about international reaction? Obviously, there's been some concern expressed at government level, it might be. What about is there any reaction from other parts of the world, and what kind are they?
Generally, people from other countries mind their own business, and they don't bother about what happens in other countries, which are regarded as the domestic affairs of those countries. But what surprised me on this issue was that I have been receiving quite a substantial volume of petitions from overseas, from Europe, from the United Kingdom, from Germany, from France, from Italy, Australia, New Zealand, from the United States and Canada, even China. They have been writing.
From the world, as a matter of fact.
From around the world. Expressing their concern about why we are doing this in this country. What is the government doing about it? Can the government move forward and take some measures to be able to protect the lives of the weak and the vulnerable people in our society, including our women folk? So that has come to me as a surprise because you know, normally you don't get petitions from outside of Papua New Guinea on domestic issues. The other important factor to note also is that those petitions also coincided with the growth in the volumes of domestic petitions and prayers and from the community for the government to do something about it. So it's now become an international issue, more or less, on what is essentially a domestic situation.
Okay, and those international petitions, all right, domestic violence against women, what about sorcery and outright murderer, man killing a man.
Yes.
Any expressions on those?
All of those, they're all human beings.
Okay.
And it's approach, those petitions are addressed in the context of the protection of human rights. But more in particular, because our women folk appear to be the victims most of the time. They also take up the women's cause as well to say that we need to do something to fix the situation as a whole, affecting both men and women.
Yes, yes. And it all comes under your watch, Minister.
Yes.
So, of course, government is doing something about it. You've talked about capital punishment or death for rapists and murderers and things like that. The Prime Minister has come out saying, giving a number of options. So Cabinet, of course, will be talking about it, and you will be at the forefront.
Yes.
Allude us, give us some preview of what might be.
Yes. There's always been arguments for and against. It's not the kind of issue that a person wants to address. That includes myself. However, when the society calls for it and it is during your watch, you cannot just sit by and ignore it. You needed to respond to it in a sensible manner. And that's why I'm responding to it. I have some time ago initiated discussions to gauge the sentiments within the society. That was about 6 months ago. I introduced the subject and in an attempt to provoke discussions. And from the discussions, we would be able to get a measure of whether or not our people are, which way our people want to see us move.
Where do they want us to move?
And the debate has been raging for a while. And, you know, if you've been tracking the media on the issue,
yes,
you will notice that almost every sector of community are supportive. The statistics is that there's about 7 million of us in this country. Now, if everybody is to become a murderer, a violent murderer, then you will have about 3.5 million murderers. Because every other person will murder every other person. So you will have 3.5 million murderers. Yeah. But why didn't they? That is because they know that you will be faced with serious penalties and consequences. Yes. If you didn't, so you don't have 3.5 million murderers, because the existence of that law has already deterred that 3.5 million people. That may be far-fetched logic, but it is still logical.
Yes, yes.
You need to look at it that way to understand that the existence of this penalty in the law books has deterred 3.5 million from killing off the other 3.5 million people.
Yes.
But if it requires us to step it up a little bit to eliminate those 500 or 600 or 1,000 murderers within the 7 million people, let's go that extra mile. Now is the time to go that extra mile.
But we could have gone that extra mile when the legislation on the death penalty was introduced and passed on the floor of Parliament. Why haven't we? There have been people who have been sentenced to death by our legal system,
yes,
but they have not been put to death.
Correct. The first death penalty was issued about 19 years ago by
Judge Doherty.
Tracy Doherty.
Yes.
And since then, there has been a growing inclination by the judges, and judges live in a society and they too feel the issues that we are talking about. So there has been, since that time, there has been a growing and increasing tendency by the courts to apply the penalty to the 3 categories of offenses that do attract death penalty. And so as we speak, I understand we have 10 people on death row
okay,
who have already exercised their right of appeal to the Supreme Court, fully exhausted all their rights of appeal procedures, and basically what remains to be done is for the implementation of the penalty itself.
Okay.
And that's where we are at now.
And just on that, what happens then? And does somebody sign instruments, the type of execution, whatever it might be? Just put us through that.
Yeah. There is a method of execution prescribed by the Criminal Code Act at Section 614, which says that the punishment of death shall be executed by hanging until the offender is declared dead. So there is a prescribed procedure already. And I do understand that at that point in time, sometimes in 2003-4, they were preparing the gallows and so on, the technical infrastructure that you need to implement the carry out the hanging were being contemplated. And then in around 2004, the cabinet commissioned a ministerial committee headed by the then Minister for Justice, Honorable Mark Maipakai, to come back to cabinet on the steps going forward. They came back with, after consultation and study, they came back with a recommendation that death penalty by hanging was a cruel and inhuman way to execute a sentence. It was violent, it was harsh and oppressive. Therefore, yes, we can still implement the death penalty, but let us look at other ways of doing it.
Other means.
Now, since that report was tabled and accepted by Cabinet, who endorsed it in principle, and have asked for a study into an alternative means of carrying out the execution, nothing has moved forward since. It's sort of left in a pending tray, and it's been in that state up until this government.
What would be the method you would moot?
Well, that's something that we would require people who are learned on this subject, including our doctors, our medical professors at the medical faculty at UPNZ, all experienced doctors, to come together and offer some opinion and advice.
Okay.
So far...
And there are three options available apart from hanging, isn't there?
No. In the law books, as it is at the moment, it's just one, that's hanging.
Yeah, that's what we have, but there are other options. I'm just wondering.
In practice, there are many other ways. Many other ways of taking a person's life. But the question for us as a government is what method brings about an outcome without, in a painless and most humane manner to the person affected. The two options that have been distilled from all those discussions is firstly, both of them will be under anesthesia, and then you can take one of two steps after having anesthetized a person, the offender. You either deprive him of oxygen, in which case he dies of oxygen starvation. Alternatively, whilst he is in that state, you inject him with some lethal medical drugs that will induce his death.
All right.
So these are the two options which have emerged as the most painless and humane way of carrying out the penalty.
Okay.
So those are I will be shortly setting up a team, including our medical people, to look into that and then write out the steps and procedures, the technical steps that is needed.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, hypothetical, how long is it going to take? 3 months? 3 years?
Well, it's taken 38 years for the law and order problem to slide downwards. It's taken about 15 to 19 years of sitting and not doing something constructive about it. If people scream for it, we can immediately hang the people. Hang the people, because it's law, it's there, it's already there, it's available. But we needed to be wary of, whilst the people, our people who are very concerned about it are loud and vocal at the moment, we also have within our community who are also conscious of human life.
Yes.
We need to also listen to them. Whilst they may be quiet, they do have their opinions, and we needed to be sensitive about that, respect them for that view also. We need to find a balance. So whilst we will be moving forward as quickly as we can. I think I would advocate some degree of restraint from speeding over the cliff. We try to approach it in a studied manner and do it properly by having all sectors of community with us, both for and against, and especially the church groups. We need to have them with us.
Okay. And another group I think perhaps you need to be wary of is if you're putting somebody to death, that person has a brother and a sister and an uncle and a tribesman and a clan that we've got to worry about. That a concern?
To a minor extent, simply because you need to understand that those relatives too are affected by the law and order phenomenon. Put that relative of theirs out of the equation, and you will see that the issue in itself as a whole is of concern to them also. They want to see steps taken in a way that brings all of this to an end. So if they put that aside, they will be able to accept that. Secondly, most of these people on death row for a long time, and the families have had a long time to think about it,
and probably have accepted it anyway.
Eventually, I think that most of them have now, even though they can never accept it fully, have come to the realization that that is the logical end of the legal process, and come what may, they would have to move on with their lives and to live with that outcome.
Okay. Minister, we are running out of time. One final question. Parliament sits in May. What do we expect from you about this whole situation on the floor?
Well, as I had already said, we don't have anything ready for Parliament. There'll be a related issue also related to violence against women, which will be tabled in Parliament by myself, called the Family Protection Act bill, which will be the design of which is to put focus on violence within the family unit and to deter violence within that family unit. That is what is ready and will be tabled on the floor of Parliament in May. There's no bias against the menfolk in that bill. It's the important thing to feature of this bill to note is that it's gender neutral. If a man is abused, he can also seek recourse under that legislation. If a woman is abused, which is more often the case, she too will have specific provisions enabling her to seek both instant and long-term relief under that legislation. So insofar as violence is concerned against human beings are concerned, and more specifically within the family unit, and even more specifically affecting women, there's a legislation coming through already. This other thing on the death penalty, on all of this, as I said, there's two things that need to happen. We needed to fix the final or alternative means of implementing the penalty, and then we'll have to bring that into Parliament together with a proposed amendment to the Criminal Code Act. So it will not be in May, but it'll be as soon as we are ready.
Sometime this year.
Sometimes this year, for sure. So that people can then need to contain themselves. So my final comment will be this, John. Are we taking draconian steps? My recommendation to the public is not to engage in the semantics. Let's deal with this as a practical situation that our society is faced with, calling for practical, pragmatic solutions, bearing in mind that whatever law reform we bring about now is not cast in steel or concrete. When we have restored our society, when we decrease the law and order, we give the country back to its owners. We give them the peace of mind to such an extent that they feel the peace and comfort in their heart to remove all their security fences around their homes, and in its place plant flower gardens and hedges and beautiful things like that, and walk the streets.
And peace and utopia prevails.
At that point in time, the law can always be reformed again, where you scrape out all these penalties that we are talking about, you reduce them, because for at that time the society doesn't need it anymore. So people need to take comfort in that.
Okay. I think on that note, we'll leave it there. Minister, I thank you for your time to come on. this program to spell out some of the points the government has, or you as minister responsible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
That's been TOK PIKSA, the interview with Attorney General and Justice Minister Kua on crime in Papua New Guinea and what the government is doing to address the issue, particularly the death penalty for murderers. Another program, another topic at the same time today week. Thank you for watching.